This is what always has been the fundamental problem with making jokes about trans women's dicks, and that being like the end of the joke. Like, that's the whole fucking joke, is like, haha, trans woman has a penis. Like, not okay, because like the fact of a woman having a penis is considered absurd. So Dylan Mulvaney is a trans woman who has come out fairly recently. She is famous on TikTok, as we've been discussing, for she does like a comedic sort of a day, like the day 63 of being a girl. Like, I think that she started it as a way of processing her emotions and like pointing out some of the funny, lighthearted things about finding the joy in being a woman and everything. So yeah, maybe if I was on TikTok, true. So that is the extent of what I know about her. And then she was invited to speak with Joe Biden at the White House. And of course, people are having like a big reaction to that. There's a lot of conversation happening on Twitter. So I actually want to just watch this segment of them speaking to one another, because it's pretty short, and just get a little bit of reaction content to that, and then look at some of what people are saying on Twitter. So let's get this all rigged up here.
Have been many anti-LGBTQ+ bills introduced and enacted.
Hold up, let's take the speed up a little bit. We're gonna make it a little bit faster.
Things like gender-affirming healthcare and banning kids from playing sports. To go deeper into this issue, here with us today is Dylan Mulvaney, who's welcomed us into her life by, showing on social media her girlhood series. Let's take a look.
My name is Dylan Mulvaney. I am a trans woman, and I am documenting my transition publicly on TikTok for the world to see. When people started watching and the numbers kept getting higher, I realized quickly how public my transition would be. Of course, I knew that there was—
Yo, this little crochet top though. Hold up. Hold up. This little crochet top that she's wearing. I gotta point this out.
TikTok for the world to see. When people started watching
Where is
and
it?
the numbers kept
Where is
getting
it? Show it to me.
higher,
Do it
I
again.
realized quickly—
There it is. That's cute. That's cute right there. That's adorable. I could make one of those. That would be so easy. You can't really move very much in that, though. You can't really lift your arms in that. Anyway.
Quickly how public my transition would be. Of course, I knew that there would be backlash and negativity. I try to not let the internet's words hurt me or my spirit. But do you know what does hurt? Seeing people in power and authority figures creating laws and bills that are actively trying to harm us trans humans, especially trans children. Our lives have become political talking points. Lawmakers in many states want to exclude us from participating in sports or getting proper health care. Some folks want to decide where we can use the bathroom. No one should have fear living in a state that they call home while being true to themselves. No one should have their lives put in danger because of who they are inside. That's why I'm sharing my story with the world. I'm using my platform to stand up for my community and for any of the little Dylans that deserve a clear path to their true identity.
Mr. President, This is my 221st day of publicly transitioning.
God love you.
Thank you. I am extremely privileged to live in a state that allows me access to the resources I need.
What did he say? Hold on.
Mr. President, this is my 221st day of publicly transitioning.
God love you.
Thank you.
I am extremely
God, I love
you,
to live
I think.
in a state that allows me access to the resources I need, and that decision is just between me and my doctors. But many states have lawmakers that feel like they can involve themselves in this very personal process. Do you think states should have a right to ban gender-affirming health care?
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that. As a moral question and as a legal question. I just think it's wrong. I think I was saying before we started that my deceased son, used to be the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. He passed the broadest piece of legislation that he, as Attorney General, was able to convince the legislature and the governor to sign that dealt with all gender-affirming capability. I mean, there's a lot of sometimes they try to block you from being able to access certain medicines, being able to access certain procedures, and so on. None of that should be available. I mean, no state should be able to do that, in my view. So I
None of that should be available.
That
was a saucy little trick, slip of the tongue. I understand that he didn't mean what it sounded like he said, but yeah, still tricksy.
That you should have every single solitary right, including use of your gender identity bathrooms in public.
Thank you. Thank you. And it is—
Slaps Hungry Bears, the insanity of the fact that you have been donating so regularly recently. Thank you. The gifted 7 Tier 1 subs. Slaps Hungry Bears says, too many white names. Also, the Tacoma protest makes me proud to live in Tacoma. Also, hi. Yes, I know the subtitles are out of sync. I can't do anything about that, Summer Star. Yes, that was awesome. Thank you. I'm going to update the thingy now because I can do math for sure. Yeah, I can do math. Yeah, I'm good at math. Congrats. High fives to me for being able to do math. All right.
It feels like Republicans have turned trans and non-binary people into this thing to blame society's downfall on in some ways.
Yes, that's
And this
true.
narrative is not only dangerous to our mental health, but also our physical safety. And particularly trans women of color are being murdered at an alarming rate.
More than any other group of people.
Thank you. How can
That's true.
Democratic leaders
He's
be
like,
more
I know this. He's like, I know this talking point. God, these gnats are driving me crazy.
effective in advocating for us trans people in our families, in our lives, and our opportunities?
I'm not being facetious when I say this, being seen with people like you. No, I mean it. I genuinely mean it. People fear what they don't know. They fear what they don't know.
Did she ask, like,
And-
what can he do? More than
Murdered
any
at
other
an
group of
alarming rate.
people?
More than any other group of people.
Thank you. How can Democratic
leaders be more effective in advocating for trans people
in our families, in our lives, and our
And
opportunities?
he's saying, I'm gonna, like, to legitimize you as a group of people by being seen speaking to you as equals, I think is what he was trying to say.
I'm not being facetious when I say this, being seen with people like you.
Yeah.
No, I mean it. I genuinely mean it. People fear what they don't know. They fear what they don't know. And when people realize, individuals realize, oh, this is what they're telling me to be frightened of, this is the problem, people change their minds. People just don't know enough to know. And it's not because of intellectual incapability, it's just lack of exposure. And I think that it's really important that we continue to speak out about the basic fundamental rights of all human beings. And the idea that what's going on, in some states, I won't get into the politics of it, but in some states, it's outrageous, and I think it's immoral. The trans part's not immoral. What they're trying to do to trans persons is immoral.
Thank you.
That's pretty cool of him to say, I guess. Like, I would like to see it backed up with more action, but at least he's like affirmative toward us as a group and not like, being the way that Trump was about us. There's that. Like, let's get some legislation, Do you got an EO that you can sign, please?
And do you have any messages to the families of trans folks that are seeking, options for their children, but are struggling to find resources? Do you have a message to those parents?
Yeah, I do. This is blood of your blood, bone of your bone. And it is, again, speaking to my son, when he spent a year in Iraq, and he was a decorated soldier. He volunteered to go, he had to give up the Attorney General's job and came back to it. And he started a foundation I'm not allowed to talk about now because I can't raise money for it any longer. But it was for abused children. And one of the things he did, he's raised millions of dollars, this organization, to basically educate parents as to what they should not be afraid of, and to educate the community as to what is just pure hyperbole. And so I just think it's a matter of leaders speaking out and saying, as I told you, I mentioned a young woman who used to be on the staff,
he's so
used to be on my
rambly.
staff, who is now a state senator. And
I have ADHD and I have a hard enough time keeping track of normal sentences. God, talking to people who are this old is very difficult.
she's trans, and she's a state senator in the state of Delaware, in an area that was historically very conservative.
Oh, is he talking about
part of
Danica
Delaware.
Rowan?
And she's running unopposed this time. So things are changing. Things are changing, but it's a matter of us acknowledging that there's nothing to be, just because it's different, there's nothing to be fearful about.
Thank you for your questions, Dylan, and for using your platform to empower others. Mr. President.
Okay, now we're going to go into abortion access. We're changing the subject to talking about something that I'm not here to talk about. Okay, I find it really interesting. Like, yes, I'm glad that we got all of those nice things said from Biden. Okay, I am, again, going to be more interested in seeing some concrete action taken. I know that they sued, I think, the state of Alabama, maybe, for their anti-trans legislation, Surely they gave him talking points to prepare ahead of time. Yeah. I mean, so it's obviously a staged thing. Okay. That's not the part that I'm super interested in, to be honest. Because we knew that we were going to get the lip service. If he invited a trans person there, it was going to be for this purpose. Now, I'm, again, glad that we're doing this and not what we were doing before. But it could be more substantial. When the attacks are ongoing and very direct, we could see some more. But again, and someone else pointed out, he's one of the most vocal politicians in support of trans rights. And he also doesn't hedge which I find interesting and I appreciate. Like, he doesn't say, oh, I think there's legitimate concerns about sports access. Like, he just says, like, bathroom access should be a thing and your rights shouldn't be restricted and your medical access should be affirmed, you know? So it's good to see that, the kind of just very direct, like, we're not really having a debate or conversation, which is good. Like, it's something that we've discussed before on the stream, where you can't hedge on certain issues. You know, when it comes to like abortion access, you can't say, well, you know, I am personally uncomfortable with third trimester abortions, so I could see there being a good reason to legislate times when that's appropriate, right? You've already given ground. You've already lost, as a matter of fact, if you give that ground, because then they say, oh, well, there's an exception. And now we're going to keep eating away, trying to keep testing the boundaries until there are so many reasons to block access, basically, like so many like quote unquote reasonable restrictions, such as transvaginal ultrasounds and whatever, you know, like you end up shrinking the right to abortion gradually. Same thing happening with trans rights. So I'm glad that we don't at least have the president going, oh, well, you know, it could, you know, we do need to still have a discussion about this, why, you know, XYZ, not playing that game. So that's good. I appreciate that strategically. Now I want to kind of shift a little bit in looking at, and if anybody else has any links about this, feel free to pop them in the chat, because I want to look at what are some of the people like fucking really hate Dylan Mulvaney. Like, she seemed totally normal during that interview process, you know? Obviously that's her in her professional capacity, and it's not, the TikToks are what people make fun of, really. So we have like senators tweeting about how ridiculous she is. This is like how senators spend their time as public servants now. Let's see how much volume we got here.
Day 74 of being a girl, round of applause for the makeup. And I wore this outfit shopping today, and I thought that these might be my new shopping shorts, but I was walking around and everyone was staring, and I was like, oh, okay, what's going on? And they were all staring directly at my crotch. And I went, oh, I forgot that my crotch doesn't look like other women's crotches sometimes, because mine doesn't look like a little Barbie pocket. And I thought, okay,
I can see people taking offense to that. It's true, however, that female coded genitalia tends to be smoother. Like, it just tends to be smoother, you know?
I have some options here. Number one, you can stop wearing clothes that fit like this and just find looser fitting items. Number two, I can do a tuck, which is gonna have to be a whole other video, but it's very painful and involved of a... Or number three,
True.
I just normalize it, and I wear clothes like this, and we all just normalize women having bulges sometimes, because we're coming up on bikini season, baby, and you might see a bulge or two. So normalize the bulge. We are normalizing the bulge. Women can have bulges, and that's okay. We're not gonna stare at their crotches while they're wearing their little shopping shorts at the mall. Oh, thank you. Love you. Bye.
So the singing sure made that cringe, I will say. The singing made me uncomfortable because it was a little bit cringe. A bop of a song. It could be refined. I could see it being refined. It just caught me off guard. Seeing, like, witnessing people sing without accompaniment, you know, kind of makes me feel like it's a little bit cringe. But everything else about that was fine. Like, yeah, like, she was wearing shorts in public and people were staring at her body. And that's, like, why is that not the problem? Like, why are people, like, this lady, Senator Marsha Blackburn, where are you a senator of? Tennessee, of course. Oh, it's this bitch. God, I hate her so much. God, she was in the, like, hearings for the confirmation of Ketanji Brown Jackson, I think. She does have a great singing voice. I will say her singing voice is great. It just caught me off guard. So this fucking, God. She says Dylan Mulvaney, Joe Biden, and radical left-wing lunatics want to make this absurdity normal. Like, so this is what always has been the fundamental problem with making jokes about trans women's dicks, and that being like the end of the joke. Like, that's the whole fucking joke, is like, haha, trans woman has a penis. Like, Not okay. Because, like, the fact of a woman having a penis is considered absurd. Like, that's been the whole reason why I've been trying to explain that shit to you for like the past 5+ years, is that fundamentally underlying the joke is the premise that, like, a woman couldn't have a penis. That's absurd. And now here we have it explicitly. Just the idea of a woman having a penis and not tucking is absurd, right? It's not absurd, it's based. True, we got the gawk. Part of it is just them hating youth culture. That could also perhaps be the case. Like, people have a tendency to rebel against, like, oh, the new kids thing. Like, whatever the kids are doing, it's new and it's bad and I don't like it, you know? Yeah, Shimeji makes the point that not all cis women are totally flat. Like, especially if they're heavier or whatever have you. Oh my God. Using a chastity device instead of tucking sounds like a whole new fucking ball game. That sounds crazy. But I don't, like, I guess I want to find some more examples of people being crazy toward her. If you're here and you haven't hit like, will you consider doing that real quick while I am seeing if there's any other senators who are talking about Dylan Mulvaney? Why don't we just do a search for Dylan Mulvaney and see what pops up? So one thing that people keep saying is Dylan Mulvaney is not trans. She's literally a trained actor who's found a way to get attention. Her Day X of Being a Girl series is a never-ending list of heavily caricatured jokes about sex stereotypes. This is not a serious person with gender dysphoria. Like, it's been very easy for me to understand that Dylan Mulvaney is just, like, making light of something that is generally quite difficult. Oh, we love Lauren Southern's response. Gonna start the female version of Dylan Mulvaney. Day 75 of being a man, haha, haven't gone to therapy once. Literally just been assaulting women and eating protein powder. Like, I really doubt that that's the true extent to which Dylan's content goes. And even if it was, like, yes, engaging with stereotypes, you can make jokes about it. Female comedians have been doing it for forever. It's actually not a big deal. But of course, like, anything that it's transgressive for a cis woman to do is not allowed for a trans woman to do. We literally talked about this earlier this week when we were talking about that trans comedian who took off her clothes during a comedy set. Like, it's normal for that setting for people to take their clothes off and, like, use their naked bodies for humor. So it's like a thing that's okay for, I would say probably most likely, like, cis men, it's okay for them to do that kind of body humor. For cis women, it's absolutely transgressive. Like, if you proudly take your top off and you're like, I'm gonna use my tits for comedy, you know, people are like, wow, so transgressive, she's breaking down the glass ceiling or whatever. And then yeah, when trans women do it, it's like, this is why we don't want you in female spaces. Like, this was not a female space. It had nothing to do with female spaces. Whatever. Oh my God, I didn't know that Lauren Southern has non-binary in her bio. Are you seeing that? Best-selling author, filmmaker, non-binary. You go, girl. Oh gosh, that's very funny. Oh God. I am looking at Ben Shapiro's YouTube channel for the first time ever. Let's see what Ben Shapiro had to say about her.
The thing that you want me to do. That rational case does not include you screaming like a banshee, falling over, crying, bumping into walls, and crying some more. Nope.
Who are you talking
So
about?
I recently told my parents that I may be a little bit romantically interested in women. And that was a big shock for them, considering the past 10 years of coming out as gay, then queer, then non-binary, then trans. And I think it was just a bit of a shock. So I tell my dad and he goes, well, I would love to see you get a woman pregnant. And I said, oh, no. She would be getting me pregnant. And then he said, what do you...
That's very funny. That's extremely funny. Oh man, I hate that, like, the best trans jokes are like the ones that cis people, like, violently don't understand, and they're like, oh, you admitted to doing something terrible. Like, no, shut up.
You have a vagina now? And I said, never say never. And then I tell my mom, and she goes, I would just love to see you own property one day.
Oh my God.
And in California, that's sort of, you know, a parent's dream. It's not having kids or getting married. It's are you able to own a house? Wouldn't that be nice?
I think that's true across a lot of demos at this time. Like, boy howdy. I might not ever live in a house. Like, I might not ever own a house, at least. Like, I might live in a house for a rental purpose, but I might never own a house. Tough thing to deal with, anyway.
Leftist gender ideology.
So the first joke was just him making a funny face and being like, well, that's just patently ridiculous based on the face he was making.
Says that you have an inborn genetic identity that is immutable. It's your gender, but it changes every 30 seconds. From gay to trans.
I don't think that she ever said that it's immutable. And also, like, yes, in a society where you're not allowed to figure yourself out, you're going to take a while to figure yourself out.
To non-binary, to agender, to pansexual, to bisexual, to likes to shoot up trees, to here's a chicken, to maybe I'll have a vagina one. By the way, your dad happens to be correct, dude.
This aggression will not stand, man.
Like when your dad says you can't get pregnant, there are a few operative things you're missing.
He's just missing the fact that she was teasing. She was joking. These people are so stupid. Like, they really cannot grasp basic humor.
A vagina is only one of them. I love how this guy comes back around to the fact that he's just a straight dude and he can't handle it. So he has to find some other way of saying, I'm just a straight dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at this face. That's definitely a straight dude. That's definitely how straight dudes dress. That's how straight dudes style their hair. That's how straight dudes wear their earring. For sure. All right, I'm done with Ben Shapiro. What a fucking dumbass. The dude would absolutely be for trans rights also. Yeah, so fuck you for tarnishing the name of the dude. Because he would absolutely be down for trans rights. You piece of shit. The boomer edits are just too dumb. We cannot abide. Oh, Phoebe G. Yeah, so whenever a trans woman calls herself a lesbian, transphobic, horrible people say, oh, so you're just a straight dude. So that's why Ben Shapiro was calling her straight, because it's like he's calling her a man, because if she's attracted to women and it's straight, then that makes her a man. So that's what he was doing. That voice gives me a rash, right? It just stresses me out immediately. Oh, God. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to all of my patrons for supporting this work that I do. I appreciate every single one of you, but I want to especially shout out Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvog, Jovian F. Gaudreau, Amanda B., Heather Clarkson, Michelle Winter, R. Halverson, Athiette, Sarah A., Wellington Marcus, Nova, Mr. Atheist, Elizabeth Bartell, Suzanne Maynard, Sojo, and Bean.